Challengers Elite Season 1 is heating up, ladies and gentlemen. We are through the group stage into the bracket. And guess what? ROSTERMANIA is already afoot. There's a ton going on in the Challenger scene, and we're here to break it all down for you. Welcome to This Week in Challengers. Group stages did wrap up this week. We had a chance to cast some of those final matches, and they were a doozy.
We did.
We wanted to talk about some of the teams that didn't make it through the group stage, because in our last episode, we kind of made some predictions of who we thought would make it through and who we thought would get left behind. And yeah, we're wrong, at least a little bit through some of our predictions. But dude, we got to talk about it. On the Group A side, we had High Treason and Next Threat not making it on through. And on the Group B side, we had Cabal and Stallions Black not making on through. Now, obviously when it came to like who was qualifying, we talked about all the permutations and stuff that were there. And it felt like for at least High Treason on the Group A side, there was a chance that they could do it. Unfortunately, they fall a little bit flat. But let's just talk about these four teams, what we think went wrong for them and why they're not currently playing in the bracket.
Yeah, I think we had, you say wrong, I think yes, but for Group B, we had Stallions Black and Cabal not making it, I'm pretty sure. I think we picked those ones out. So, yeah, I mean, look, Stallions Black team, this was a very inexperienced roster. Yumi got to cast over some of those games. You see flashes of where they were very good, flashes where they were very shit. And part of that was, quite frankly, a massive lack of leadership. They would have moments where they'd take control of the game and then release it because there's no one taking charge of what was going on. For Cabal, I think this team just falls short in the pure talent perspective. I think that they're a good team. Am I surprised they make the Elite? Will I be surprised if they make it again, especially the four players on that roster? Maybe one of them could do with a little bit of work himself. But other than that, I think it's a solid team. On the other side of things, I think you and me could never predict the whole Next Threat situation. But High Treason, they actually impressed the hell out of me. And honestly, they were so close for squeezing through. And I feel like they deserved it. I'm sorry for them.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. There were like some highlight, like world star moments from them in some of those games, but it did feel like a little bit of they were lacking, I think, some of the composure that we see with other squads in those sort of high pressure moments, right? And I feel like that's just what happens when you're kind of a newer team kind of coming together. Questions about this roster moving into when we talk about some cups in the Elite 2, because, well, there's been some roster moves that have happening after they get bounced out of here, the group stages. So it won't be the same High Treason in the next Elite that we see coming on back. So it kind of has us some question marks, but I think what we have seen, though, is that, you know, all four of those players, I think, deserve some eyes on them, at least if you're kind of talking about ROSTERMANIA or maybe looking at some changes that you can make. I think they made the statement they were looking for, where all of them definitely had their flash in the pan of greatness and were looking really good. For Next Threat, like you mentioned, I mean, that's just like an unfortunate situation at the end of the day. Very. I think the elephant in the room that we have to talk about, though, is that like Yeez is a really, really, really good player, but coming in, and there's no other way to say it than you just sucked. Like, and it's nothing against the guy or anything like that. Like, it's a tough situation to be in, but I didn't see anything that made me think like, oh, like that's the Yeez that we know that can come in and fry. Like, it was just every single game was like double negative, it felt like, and it was like heartbreaking to see, but also at some point, like, I'm like, where's the Yeez that we know can be an absolute superstar?
No, he stunk the place out, quite frankly, which is bad. Like, I mean, you and me did a lot of data diving, a lot of deep stat diving, a lot of all that kind of stuff in preparation. And it was like, where's Yeez? Bottom 5. Where's Yeez? Bottom 5. If not bottom 1, bottom 5, every single stat. So it was like, okay, this is bad. The eye test was bad. Everything about it. And to be fair, he gets thrown into a roster that was never going to fit him. He was trying to run the AR. You're trying to replace Exceed, who's obviously doing a brilliant job this year. A lot of pressure. We're just thrown into a giant, dropped in the middle of the ocean with no armbands and you don't know how to swim. That is what it felt like. Confidence was instantly racked. But I feel like coming into those last set of games, just do something different with him. Like, let him do something different. Don't keep putting him on the air. But either way, it didn't work. And yeah, I'm just curious about how much that hurts his stock going forward, because you and me both know that he can be a hell of a talent.
Yeah, and I like that you bring that up, because I think that is also the key to it, right? It's like, well, listen, we've been around the space enough. We know it's just not all stat lines, right? That you can look at bad stats and that doesn't automatically mean like, oh, this is a terrible player, because I think you brought up a very good point, is that I feel like there's also a little bit of onus on the team itself of just assuming that Yeez is going to slot in for how Exceed would play and that it would be all, you know, kind of glory days until then. But it's not even the case at all, right? And like you said, it's like you're running an AR. It's like at least pick some of these mixy maps and let him pull out a sub if he needs to, right? Kind of and be able to run around, right? We're talking about, we have Colossus and Blackheart in the mix right now. Try and if you can, you know, put your map sets over that way. If you can't, even exposure, right? With even on some of those hard points, like you can get mixy with the subs and holding some off angles. So I don't know. I'd be kind of curious to see, you know, what is next for Yeez, but also we're going to talk about the new next threat roster that's coming on down. Well, will we see anything happen there? I definitely agree on the Group B side though. With Cabal, the only thing that pissed me off with Cabal was them going into that last day. They knew they were making changes anyway, and they just didn't even bother scrimming up until that point. Like there was the day of, we're like, are they even playing today? Who knows? Then we see in a hard point, they're just bringing out like snipers and they're just knifing. And I get it, but like at least just put up some numbers. And the problem is you still have people on their team who were frying, who were like looking insane, right? And so a little bit of a heartbreak to me, and we've all seen the drama with Stallions Black going on as well. We don't need to cover it because there's about 48 different videos on the timeline, and Tack Rab I think has 5 videos of himself that has put up about the Stallions Black drama. But all you need to know is that team's blowing it up, and after going 0-5 in groups, I'm not surprised. But with obviously some of these teams making it out of the group stage, we got to talk about the first round of bracket that then happened on Thursday. Lots of different storylines to talk about here, Enigma. I think some of the heavy hitters coming on through and really just kind of being in the form that we've come to know and love, but also some surprises.
Most definitely some surprises. First of which being that TWIC Bush and Omit Brooklyn have to basically fight each other for a top 8 position. A team that both of us wouldn't have been surprised at the start of the Elite if they would have ended up in grand finals. So yeah, that's a disappointing story for both of those teams. I guess we walk away from that one with the Omit Brooklyn lineup are probably going to be making changes because they had a breakdown. But the one thing that Bush really have to focus on is just fixing the third mode. I don't know what the hell. I don't think I've ever seen a team be so strong through a competitive year, but be so bad at the third mode. Obviously, this is moving to Overload, so maybe that's part of it. But I can't think of a single time where a team's been like strong at hardpoint, strong at S&D, absolutely bloody abysmal when it comes to, I guess, control previously, capture the flag, uplink. Yeah. I genuinely can't think of it, but that could be their undoing this year if they're not very careful.
Yeah, I have it titled here in our notes. Dear God, Bush is awful at Overload was the title. Dude, it's just like an eye test thing. It's like, it's one thing to lose. Like, you know, you look at a record, right? And you say, oh, they're losing all their overloads, but it's close. You know, maybe it's like a 5-3, something like that. I don't know. Like, you know, that would make sense. It's like, okay, like you get some semblance of the mode, but you're not really performing. No, they're getting choke slammed. Every overload, they are barely scoring a point, right? And I was watching the Jersey Jerry, you know, kind of the watch party that the boys do. They had Temp in the call. They were asking Temp, like, what are we doing here? And it's like, it kind of sounds like they don't even scrim Overload that much. So it feels like to me, it's just lack of reps on the game. I think sometimes they a little bit overthink the game mode and overlook just like these easy paths to push on forward where they'll get 3 dead and all you got to do is have that one guy play in front, play trades, be good. But then they're like, all of a sudden they're like wrapping the bomb back to the other side to try and score on it. It's like sometimes it just doesn't make sense, dude. And it just feels like there's a level of like how to fundamentally play the game mode that's missing from them.
There's no way of really putting it down. You'd have to watch it. Honestly, if it's not Scar, then they just look lost, completely lost. And to sum it up, the Brooklyn series, they win the Den Hardpoint 252-24, Colossus S&D 6-3, the Colossus Hardpoint map for 251-29. You'd think, oh, all right, they did all right in the over, lost 5-0. Yeah. It's just not even close. Like, you look at some of the performances here, 0.46 out of Capsule. I don't know when I've ever seen that stat line from him. So but it seems like a massive disconnect from all of them. Yeah. It seems like they just don't know how they want to play the mode. And, well, as we're seeing, it's a mode of moments, and you've got to be on a wavelength as a team to make those happen. But moving forward from just how shite they are in that mode, there's a really, really strong team working their way through this bracket currently, and that is Project Notorious. Yes. You and me talked about it. They looked great in groups, but were they given the easier group? Turns out, no, they're just hitting form at the right time.
Yeah, and I think you even see it with some of the bracket there, right? Being able to come out with a strong 3-1 against what we all considered a very talented Omit Brooklyn team. Great. And then actually even go to a game number 5 against the Falcons Academy Green team, which I've really been showcasing also some really strong moments throughout, basically through the group stages and even just the bracket as well. So I think that was a good test for them. And I think this matchup they have against For Fun Esports is going to be really, really key and how they look on that, right? I think if they look in true form, I think they're going to make a very strong run in this bracket, but I could see it maybe wavering just a little bit potentially.
Absolutely. I think that, I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a tough one with where they could go at this point. I don't know. I know we're getting into this a little bit later, so why don't we save some of that conversation for that? But it's a weird one for this team right now. I guess the other teams to talk about here, you've obviously got For Fun. Yeah. They're an interesting team right now. They shocked everyone just to get to this point. Just to get to the elite, let alone then qualify through their group. And now they're through to winners finals as well. The only thing that concerns, I guess, both of us is that they drop a lot of maps. Yep. So that's my only tidbit there in terms of can you win the event? Yeah. No, you're right there. Round number 1 could have very easily been a Huntsman win. And all of a sudden now you're going against Falcons Academy White. It kind of just, there's a lot of what ifs that are going on there. And I think if you're consistently a team that's getting to a map 5, you brought it up. It's just, you're putting yourself in these situations you don't need to be in. Would love to see For Fun be able to come out and get a nice little 3-0-3 win victory. So that way they can showcase, hey, we can close up the maps where we need to. We don't have to rely on being really good at search and destroy, which, to be fair, not surprised that all these maps are going to, that they are winning these 5-game series, because that team is gross at search and destroy. It's a lot of S&D kids that are kind of coming together, right? So maybe that's what they're thinking in their back pocket. They said, hey, we're so confident in our search that we're not even worried if it gets to a game 5, right? A win is a win. That's really all that matters. So very curious. I think the matches that we have coming up this week are going to be super fun. Just looking at this bracket, right? On the elimination side, we have the Falcons teams firsting each other. We have 5 Fears versus Telluride Bush. It's going to be an absolute bang out that's going on there. And then even that winners finals is going to be really, really nice. It'll set us up for a really fun grand finals time that's there. So I don't know, man, very excited to tune on into the matches this week, and for all of us, obviously, to get a chance to cast a lot of these matches that are going on as well. It's going to be a hell of a time. Now for a fun little segment, an addition that we're doing here on, of course, the Quick Fix podcast. And that is our segment called the Quick Fix Picks. Now, this is going to be where Enigma and I, whether it be a cup, whether it be an elite, or maybe even the upcoming open that we have, where we are going to make our pick on who we think is going to take it to the house, who's going to be getting that dub and be crowning themselves champions. We're going to each pick a team. We're going to kind of hem and haw and debate about it. So, my friend, I'm going to let you go first, because I think your team is maybe a little bit realistic than mine. Okay, all right. Well, I've gone with the boring option, shall we say? I don't know. There's so many talented teams here, but we'll put in quotes. I'm going Project Notorious. I think that they have been gross. They've improved all the way through the year. We've been talking about it. They were consistently a team through the start of the season where they wouldn't slip up to anybody, and they would only lose to the bigger teams. And there was 1 or 2 hurdles. Could you get past them? Well, one of them was a Falcons team in particular. They end up going into their groups, play against both Falcons teams, 3-0-ing one and 3-2-ing the other, 3-2-ing Falcons Green, which then you 3-2 as well in the bracket. So they march on through their group. We're talking, all right, is this a squad that got lucky with the group that they were given? Turns out, no, they're doing just fine, even through bracket play. 3-1 over Brooklyn, very comfortable. And then again, that game 5 over Falcons Academy Green. They'll go up against For Fun in winners finals. Yep. And I see them getting the job done, pushing themselves through to grands. And then any team that's making that lower run, I don't know. There's none that I look at and just think that Project Notorious can't get by. So they're looking absolutely fantastic. In particular, Wakening, he's going to lead the line for KD. I do kind of take it with a pinch of salt all the time with Wake. He's a bit of a slower player, more of a cover over your frontmen kind of performer in terms of the AR, so he gets a lovely little KD. I think Geo looks absolutely next level. I think him and Too Real as a duo are just performing out of this world right now. Really lights out, very much so carrying them through big moments, and I think they get them there. I think the thing that has me with a little bit cause for concern for that roster, though, if they come out flat against For Fun, right, and they do manage to get dropped to that lower side, I'm looking at a Falcons Academy Green that, you know, when you're looking at how they stack up against those other teams, they're looking pretty solid as well. You've gone the distance both times against that team. You know, there's a potential where maybe they slip up and maybe they bow on out. But I think you have some of the stats to prove it, my friend. I think it's a really solid answer. But
Of course, I love a good Cinderella story. I love the teams that can play from behind. I love the underdog story. And I don't know how much of an underdog they are, but all I know is that they got to make a loser's bracket run. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. I am picking the Telluride Bush to make the run of a century. I guess it's really not that much of a run of a century, but I think that if the Bush can go back
round one
to the drawing board, if they can figure out how the F to play Overload, they will become a scarier team, right? They're starting off the day with 5 fears. And I think why I actually think that this is a realistic situation that could potentially happen. This is a team that I think needs pressure on them. And starting down in the losers, right? Being able to get there, you got to play through day one, play through the losers, understand if we lose, we are done. You're going against 5 fears. I don't think it's necessarily a super tough matchup for them, but I think that's sort of your confidence builder for them to be able to have, right? You could go in, execute on the strategy you've been just sort of practicing all week, feel good. And then you go up against these Falcons teams, either one, Falcons Academy White, Falcons Academy Green, that you actually probably feel pretty okay against, right? I don't think any of them are a super league above the Telluride Bush. And then you're going against either For Fun or Project Notorious. That's where it does get scary to me. This is where I'm hoping you get that losers bracket heat up kind of going on in. You do get iced out, right? Because they're not going to play, I believe, that losers finals until Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. So I think they play losers finals and grand finals. Am I wrong? Or am I right?
I think you're right. I think you're right.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's like you get iced up a little bit, but even then, maybe that's what you need, right? You go in on that first day, you have a losers final against a really tough team, and then you're playing the opposite one in grand finals that's there. So this feels like a very momentum heavy based team that as long as they get started, they've figured out Overload, they've gone back to the lab. I think that they are going to be very scary with some heat underneath them.
It's funny because like coming into this, like if you go Bush, and I could have sat here and gone, oh yeah, all right, we're going with the Bush game, and all right, someone wants the Twitter points, but to be honest, you also make some good points in the sense of this is also a team that goes very hot or very cold. Yes. When they're cold, they're cold. When they're hot, they're very hot. So they could just come out the week and just absolutely body bag everybody and make the run. It would be a Cinderella story from elimination round one. Good Lord, paid to speak and tripping over that one. But also there is that pressure. You mentioned it. If they drop out top 6 here, you get a couple of these players getting dropped on the head by Donnie Temp. Like that's without question here. We know how the standards are for Jersey Jerry, the Unshaven, and all the rest of it. You don't put this much hard work and passion into accept top 6 in the elite. So especially as well then going into that major, maybe you don't make the change before the major because it's such a short gap and you want to just take whatever you can through to it. But I would be surprised if there isn't at least very uncomfortable murmurings of that change already coming through. So yeah, no, I like it. And I could definitely see it. And you know, what I then want is a Project Notorious Bush Grand Finals.
Yeah, I think if we got that, we'd all be eating. We would all be very good. But those are our quick fix picks on who we think is winning the Elite One. We mentioned it earlier in the group stage, but there is ROSTERMANIA afoot here in Challengers. Some of these teams not making it to the bracket. They're taking that opportunity to get some new squads formed, of course, before the Challengers Open that's happening at Major 1, and also with some cups coming up as well. We're going to kickstart it with a brand fresh new Cabal roster. After bowing out, I think they blow it up. They knew this team was going to not be together, I think, after not doing too hot in the group stage. So now we have Nezra and Katz staying from that roster before, but they are now joined by Mirage. I believe it's Mirage. Please correct us in the comments. If not, I'm 99% certain it is. But also none other than the man I think we've talked about almost every single week because he's been hopping around like a jackrabbit. It is Legend also joining this team. Enigma, here's my thing. I like this team a lot. I actually really like Nezra. Nezra was putting up some insane stat lines. We were doing some of our stats for those matchups last week. I think Legend looked really good in that cup that we saw his team playing on in. And Mirage, don't know a lot. The problem for me with this team, and I hate to be a hater, I really do, but I got to call it like I see it. Katz's numbers looked terrible with that last roster. And I know we just had that whole conversation about Yeez, and it could be the same thing. Like, is your team not enabling you enough to be able to find the kills that you're looking for? But the stat line was bad. And so obviously Afflicted sees something with this roster that we don't and thinks that this is the team that can now maybe put a stamp with that Cabal roster and have them looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I've been surprised by teams before, without a shadow of a doubt. Do I see this team being much more than maybe like a top 16 roster? I don't think so. And I'm talking top 16 as in like every team was entering, not just like pop cups or whatever. Could I see them running for a pop cup? Sure. But I don't know about elite. I don't know. Like Legends growth, we don't fully understand what his ceiling is yet. He got thrown in the deep end with the CDL stuff and comes out, looks pretty great, and then his mental's completely chalked over the Stallion situation. He's leaving, he's not leaving, he's all that stuff. So whatever went on there. Nezra, I agree with you. He's been impressive. I don't know too much about Mirage either. And yeah, Cats, it's not been a fantastic start to the season. So yeah, it's a weird one. Again, if this roster was to be top 16 and Cabal make changes later on down the line, it wouldn't surprise me at all. But again, you and me, I mean, at the start of the year, when that Cabal roster that they initially had together with Rupert and co, would we have said that they would have been grand finals? No. So Cabal, they're good at picking up a couple of under horses and making it work.
Yeah, kind of wonder if are you kind of going through the cycle where you're going to be like, hey, well, let's find the pieces that need to happen in order for this team to be successful. Could be there. I mean, I'm right there with you. Legend, kind of still a big question mark. Really looking forward to see. He needs to do something a little bit more, I think, for me to have the stock, unlike sort of his counterpart Renegade, who has really shown some really solid growth that's there. So be curious to see how that team works. But we got to also talk about a couple other squads. We're going to be ripping through these. Let's talk about what is in Dimensions. What is going on? Dimensions joins 4Fun Esports, the other original 4Fun Esports. Technically, the one in the Elite right now is 4Fun Black. None of the branding shows that, but just that way everybody knows. But this is the original roster of Gunzy, Dak, and Wiz. Flames out, Dimensions in.
Yeah, it feels like we're missing like a 4Fun pink and blue and white before we get to black, but we'll take 4Fun black. Yeah, I mean, look, Dimensions on that high treason roster, very impressive, right?
Yes.
The one thing was he was an X factor. He either absolutely blew out and smoked the entire lobby, or he sunk and was terrible. The one thing is with situations like that, if a player has a ridiculously high ceiling, maybe it's a case of you're trying to overheat, overcompensate for what's around you. You're trying to do too much. We've seen that happen before. But also, it's a case of if you end up then going alongside very experienced, talented players, can they help refine you and coach you into the position that you kind of lift your floor? And if you do, then Dimensions becomes a ridiculously good pickup. He's a very good player. This team just miss out on getting through to the Elite, and it's only because they had to play Telluride Bush in the final qualification match because their now sister team wasn't the sister team at the time, upset Bush in the This Is How Challengers works, ladies and gentlemen. My giant fucking whiteboard's off on this side of things. But this could be a really interesting team. Gunzy, Dak, and Wiz, a great trio. And yeah, if we get these guys in the next Elite, wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, no, I really like this. I do think Dimensions does bring a lot of firepower, and I'm right there with you. I think pairing him up with some veterans of Challengers and of Call of Duty and Gunzy, Dak, and Wiz is really, really smart. I think that's like a solid little trio. This feels like to me like you have your solid trio. Let's bring in our X Factor Slayer to be able to kind of help just elevate what we need to do, how we want to play some of those maps. Really excited for this team. Maybe we'll get some 4Fun versus 4Fun in the future. We'll have to wait and see. But we mentioned Flames was out. Let's talk about where did Flames go? Well, he goes to Next Threat because of all those things we mentioned earlier with Yeez, right? Yeez does not look good, gets slotted on in. Maybe they just say, hey, this is not what we're looking for. And rather than take the time to try and build them up, sometimes it's just easier to make that change. You bring in Flames.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see how Flames slots into this roster. Next, there's such a weird team. Like Johnny, Standy, and Diamond Con, all three of them are playing really well right now. Johnny and Standy, I think, are genuinely playing brilliantly. Like really having like a good time right now. Apart from the fact that they just can't. Diamond Con is I feel like he's a player who's kind of like sometimes really hot, sometimes kind of just meh, but like he also has really high assist numbers, damage numbers, so he's doing his job really as an AR. So it's a weird one. If this team got a really strong fourth, as we saw when they had Exceed, they could make grand finals, potentially win things. So Flames coming in, that's a lot of pressure. Can you slot into that system? Well, we've already seen how it looks when you don't, and it can't get much worse, surely. So God bless you, Yeast, but hopefully Flames can go in, do the business. Either way, we get a glorious graphic out of it. That's great work.
No, this is sick. More of this, please. I do love that. Yeah, very excited. I think Next Threat, they still will maintain a threat with Flames now. Definitely, I think a little bit more than Yeez. Back to the drawing board, feeling good. But the last thing we got to talk about is a little piece of news with Gentle. The Saudi Arabian player has reportedly had his visa approved and will be moving over to the USA as originally planned to compete in NA Challengers. He will most likely join one of the Falcons Academy rosters. Unsure when this will occur. This is really interesting because when we talk about EMEA, there really hasn't been many storylines, right? In England, it's been kind of just the same teams running worlds, feeling good, right? Okay, awesome. But Gentle's been a standout player all the way through. And with Gentle leaving EMEA and coming over to North America and maybe joining one of those Falcons rosters, we know Falcons Academy White, they're a little bit step behind the Falcons Academy Green team. I wonder, will he replace one of those players on the White? And then maybe will Falcons have two really strong Challengers rosters?
It's a good question because well the thing is like otherwise I don't know where Gentle lands because I don't think he would get much stock. Like people be like, oh, he did all right over in EMEA, and I don't think any ANA player will care. To be quite honest with you.
Fair.
So yeah, I think he's got to land on one of these Falcons teams. The problem is for who? I think RCT hasn't had a great year so far, right? I think he was okay during this last week actually. And if he has a good, you know what this could be? The Falcons derby that we're about to get in the Elite, that could kind of settle it. That could help make the decision about who gets pumped here. Priest had a really poor group stages, but picked it up all this last week. I think RC's in the same boat. Paul X has been good. King of Body's been
I think that's it. I think it's King of Body potentially, man.
Maybe.
I just when we look at the stat line, when I'm looking at the box sheets, always the player that's a little bit step behind. Sometimes feels like he's like the I gotta play the objectives that way the rest of my teammates can actually play COD is kind of what it feels like sometimes.
It's weird because like I feel like he actually plays better when they lose. I actually feel like I wish I'm shitting you, but like it feels like when they lose, he's keeping them in the game, but when they win, he's nowhere to be seen. Like it's a weird one. So do you set up a team to not lose or to win? Well, there's only one answer to that. And then on green, Asim Roxas has been fine. QK's had his moments. I think Rupert struggled initially coming into it, but he's new to this.
Yeah.
But is he to this roster? Sorry. The only thing that hangs over Rupert a little bit is, are you part of the circle? Because that's what the Falcons rosters feel like.
Yeah. The other thing I gotta just throw out there real quick: do we see a shuffle go on, and do we see a full Saudi Arabian team in here in North America? Because they can do that across their two teams. They can make that happen with Gentle joining in. Be very interesting. But a lot of stuff in ROSTERMANIA, man. It's a lot to keep up with. So I know we kind of breezed through a lot of this. We'll be keeping our eye on a lot of these teams, a lot of these players to see how did they do. Will they maintain the form that we think they will? So it's a lot that's been going on this week, my man. But all I know is that I'm excited to see Elite One wrap up. Where do we stand? And also start to feel a little bit of that energy because we have the Challengers Open literally the weekend after. We're eating good right now in Call of Duty, man.
We most certainly are. We got all the investment from all the different teams, watch parties. Challengers feels like the lifeblood it was always supposed to be. And yeah, man, can't wait to catch these games alongside you, set up all of those storylines ahead of the Open. My God, what a time.